Of course, you heard President Trump bombed Iran over the weekend for Israel, but you don't tune into this channel to get breaking news. You come here to get in-depth, independent, honest analysis, the full context of what is happening and why. So let's take a deep dive into this situation. A lot of people are upset, both on the right and on the left, screaming that President Trump just started World War III. And a lot of people on the Maga side, understandably very upset that President Trump has involved us in another one of Israel's problems. And that needs to be said because that is what's going on. But if you're a clown working for the New York Times, you're upset that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth referred to the B-2 pilots as our boys on those bombers. Yet both men and women have trained to fly them. And I saw some claims, I haven't verified it, that there might have been a female pilot on board, or at least a female member of the crew on one of those B-2 bombers, which, if it is true, is a terrible mistake because she obviously should be back at the base making the boys some sandwiches. Some of the more mild-mannered MAGA people saw this and hoped that this was just a one and done. Basically a drive-by. President Trump assisting Israel in their plan to deal with their primary enemy over there in the Middle East, as always, having to use us to do their dirty work. But then yesterday, President Trump ruffled a lot more feathers, saying this on Truth Social: "It's not politically correct to use the term regime change. But if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? Maga, make Iran great again." And so now tons of MAGA folks are completely outraged. But I think that they are reading wrong into this. This is President Trump just trolling the regime over there and using this as more leverage to then come to the negotiation table to negotiate a peace deal. He knows very well what happened to President Bush's legacy. President Bush gave Saddam Hussein 48 hours to step down from power, or then he would institute the full invasion over there. So, major distinction between an invasion, boots on the ground, and dropping a couple of bombs as the B-2 bombers fly over in the night. And again, still not supporting our involvement over there. That's very clear where I stand on that. But to compare the two, at least at this point, and hopefully this will remain the case, is, well, quite frankly, ridiculous. Out of all of the angry tweets that people posted over the weekend on both the left and on the right, many MAGA on the right will ultimately go back and delete all those tweets and pretend that they never said such things and that they were always on board with President Trump. If this thing smooths over and this is the only involvement that we have and things settle down over there, which hopefully they will, I'm not one of these doomsdayers who is always fearing the worst and think that World War III is just around the corner. I've seen so many boys who cry wolf in this movement and online over my 20-year career. It's sad, quite frankly. But this person sums up the situation better than everyone when he said there's a 100% chance that none of us know what the actual F is really going on. That especially includes Mark Levin, who has probably been making sweet love to Lindsey Graham, celebrating this attack, who said this on Fox News over the weekend.
America, don't you feel relief? Of course you feel relief.
We're supposed to be relieved. Is that why the government issued a warning on heightened threats from Iran? The Department of Homeland Security issued an advisory warning Americans all around the world that Iran and their proxies could retaliate with any number of terrorist attacks. But yeah, we're relieved. J.D. Vance did acknowledge this possibility, and again, I emphasize possibility. You may recall a lot of MAGA got totally freaked out when President Trump ordered the drone strike on the Iranian General Soleimani back in 2020, thinking that would spark World War III, and they all forgot about it literally the following week. Really, probably 3 days later. And those same people completely freaked out when President Trump bombed an airbase in Syria shortly after taking office. I'm not saying that this isn't going to escalate, but let's try to not be paranoid about things, shall we? But here's J.D. Vance having a level-headed response about the possibility for some retaliations.
What we're prepared for is if they attack us in a maximal direction, first of all, we have got maximum defensive posture. I think that we're going to be able to defend as many of our people as possible. And of course, I'd encourage Americans to pray for our guys in the Middle East.
Now, they wouldn't hit us here unless it's some rogue, lone wolf, supposed sleeper cell. But if they had sleeper cells here, and I've seen a lot of people warning about them, be on the lookout, be vigilant, stay armed. Okay, if they had sleeper cells here, they most likely would have been activated immediately after the attack. That would have been the trigger. They would have been here and been prepared because they know that something like this has been in the works for a long time. And so they probably aren't even here. That's not to say that we haven't been infested with a bunch of radical Muslim terrorist sympathizers, of course, thanks to both the Republican and the Democrat immigration policies, just allowing anyone and everyone to flood into our country, including those who literally hate our country. So these individual lone wolf attacks definitely are possible, getting inspired from the situation, but as part of a larger coordinated network and a plan, very unlikely. I can see some people posted in the comments now, Mark must have got the call from the Jews. That's why he's saying these things. This is a nuanced and in-depth analysis that some people just don't have the intellectual capacity to understand. They see the world as either black or white. It's all one way or all the other. They really just can't understand the complexities of these kinds of situations. Republican Congressman Thomas Massie from Kentucky has personally upset President Trump because he is voicing his concern about this attack and not bending over and kissing the feet of Israel.
And the notion that this isn't an act of war, I find ludicrous. This is a hot war. There are two nations, Israel and Iran, trading volleys of missiles every night, every day, and we're co-belligerent now in this war.
Yes, we are, and that's the reasonable take to have, to be concerned, to be upset, to be let down, to hold President Trump accountable for bending over to the interests of a foreign country, one that Ben Shapiro and others assured us would be able to take care of themselves.
They say that I want America to fight wars for Israel. Nope. First of all, Israel can take care of herself.
Except everybody knew that they couldn't because they didn't have the physical capabilities to take out those underground nuclear facilities because only we can with the B-2 bomber and those bunker buster bombs that Trump just ordered dropped over there on Saturday. Former Congressman Matt Gaetz, who now hosts a show over on OAN, has had some of the best takes on the situation and is gaining me not just a lot more respect for him, but also for OAN, which I've always thought is fantastic. But the fact that they are allowing him to say such things on air over there shows that they are not or may not be as or at all controlled by the same kinds of influences that tend to dominate the other media companies.
Israel didn't kick their regime change habit with Iraq or Libya or Syria, it seems. They need another fix. But Matt, this isn't a regime change war. It's about Iran's nuclear program. I wish that were true, but it's not. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene opined that maybe Netanyahu is so feisty about regime change in Iran because he was facing regime change in Israel.
It's not being reported enough that on Thursday, they held a vote in the Knesset, and it was only by 2 votes that Netanyahu won. If he had lost, they would have had another election in Israel, and the polling shows that he would lose if an election were to occur today. That vote happened last Thursday. And then Friday, Israel attacked Iran. That's why the bombs are falling.
Very insightful analysis coming from a guy who got the intelligence briefings when he was in Congress, so he would know. Compare that to this clown show, a YouTube channel, a media company started by former MSNBC host, whatever this clown's name is. I didn't waste 2 brain cells even remembering, having his guest on to give his analysis.
Immediate reaction to this. Did you see this coming?
My immediate reaction to this is that Donald Trump has guaranteed that Iran will be a nuclear weapon state in 5 to 10 years from now.
Now it's going to happen even quicker. Even though Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying for like 30 years that in 2 years, he's going to have the capability. But now, because Donald Trump upset them by destroying most of their nuclear facilities, now it's going to happen even faster. And if you know me, I'm not afraid to criticize our own team. I am a media analyst, a media critic. And like a film critic, I tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. A lot of people in this business are just cheerleaders. They don't want to offend anybody because they want to share audiences. They want to go on their podcast. Everybody in this business has such a big ego. If you tend to just disagree with something that they say, or if you disagree with something a little bit too harshly, then they'll never have you on their show. They'll never retweet you. They'll never give you a shout out. They'll never cover your content. I obviously don't care. And so that's why I can mock and ridicule posts like this from Millie Weaver, who's done some great work. She used to work for InfoWars. She's getting a little paranoid, though. I just ordered potassium iodide tablets. That's what people take because they think it's going to prevent the thyroid from, absorbing the nuclear radiation in a nuclear war. Hopefully they'll arrive before the nukes start dropping. This is the kind of paranoia that I'm talking about. Don't be like this. Okay, now on to the memes. As I said, the left, as we all know, the left can't meme. The left are memes. And so these are memes from people on the right who are very upset with President Trump for getting us involved over there, calling him Bush Light, the logo from Bush Beer. This average Joe Maga switching his hat from no new wars to bombs away, celebrating the attack. Oh, they get even better. Get a load of this. This is a scene from the original made-for-TV movie It. There's Pennywise, the clown, down there in the sewer as he's luring Georgie in, his first kill, saying, I have another war down here, luring President Trump into the sewer. This is another great one. This is the Trump administration according to libtards, and then Trump's administration in reality. This may be the most insane one of all. This from Rabbi Shmuley. He's that just total whack job who sells sex toys with his daughter, a rabbi who celebrates Pride Month. Of course, well, I better not say it. But he posted this meme calling Tucker Carlson a Holocaust denier, and that's Mark Levin there KOing him. Tucker, of course, being vehemently opposed to any of our involvement over there. And Laura Loomer is now more in love with President Trump than ever before. Laura Loomer, a proud Jew and major Zionist, posted, Donald Trump is going down in history as the most influential president in history. There is no one greater. Shame on those who call him a warmonger. He just saved us all from a nuclear holocaust. God bless him. All of us he saved. This is especially hilarious when you see what she was posting before President Trump, became an interventionalist over there in the Middle East, when she slammed Nikki Haley, saying that Nikki Haley went on CNBC and called for the U.S. to bomb Iran. Nikki Haley wants more war in the Middle East, which means more dead U.S. soldiers. The only person who has proven that he won't create more wars is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the pro-peace candidate. So there she was, just back in January of last year, slamming Nikki Haley for calling on us to bomb Iran, and yesterday celebrating President Trump for doing just that. And I apologize if I'm repeating myself. Not everybody watches every video, so there are some very important little-known facts that people really need to know in order to understand what it is that's going on. So just briefly, I'll mention the Clean Break Plan, which was a document published in 1996, put together by a bunch of neocons, along with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, which outlined the need to solve Israel's security problems, which then also included the removal of Saddam Hussein from power in Iraq. Okay, I mean, that is why we went into Iraq after 9/11. Okay, it wasn't to stop Saddam from attacking us. It was to, once again, do Israel's dirty work. To protect Israel. And while you're not supposed to admit that, because that opens up a gigantic can of worms about certain kinds of influence within our government over our foreign policy, which is deemed anti-Semitic to even think about such things or notice such things, that is at least an argument that people have. And you could even call it a reasonable argument. We got to protect our allies over there in this tiny country surrounded by people that they don't like or that don't like them, or both, vice versa, right? But that is at least a more valid argument than the argument that the Christian Zionists, particularly the dispensationalists, are making and have been making ever since certain kinds of influences took over the core Christian doctrine, which Ted Cruz is brainwashed to believe and ascribes to, saying this last week during his interview with Tucker Carlson.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis, but...
Genesis 12:3.
So you're...
Which we'll look at in a moment.
Quoting a Bible phrase, you don't have context for it, and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused.
That's the core basis of his foreign policy as well. By the way, subscribe to my channel if you're new here, because obviously you're not going to get information and analysis like this anywhere else. Be sure to check back here on a regular basis, because this channel is shadow banned. Let's take a look at that verse in Genesis, shall we, where it actually doesn't reference Israel, because there was no nation of Israel at the time. Was it 5,000 years ago when Genesis was written? I will bless those who bless you. This is God talking to Abraham. And whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the peoples on the earth will be blessed through you, because, well, Jesus came through that lineage, okay? So it doesn't even mention Israel like Ted Cruz says. It doesn't mention the country, the nation of Israel. This is literally talking about Abraham. And sadly, the vast majority of Christians today think the same thing that Ted Cruz thinks, where they feel they need to bless the nation of Israel, which they believe is a Jewish religious country. They don't even know that the term Jew or Jewish has two different meanings. It means either an ethnic group, someone who's ethnically Jewish, descendants or supposed descendants of the ancient Israelites, or someone who is an ethnic Jew and a, quote, religious Jew who ascribes to the religion of Judaism. They don't even know that Israel is a secular nation. If it was a Jewish religious nation, they wouldn't be having the biggest pride parades and pride celebrations in the Middle East. They would be following the fundamental laws of the Old Testament. They would be just as radical as some of the fundamentalist Muslim countries in the Middle East. I don't even have time to pull up all the quotes to show that Jews are not God's chosen people. Christians are God's chosen people. Certainly not an ethnic group that mostly doesn't believe in God at all, let alone in Jesus. And do I need to start quoting the Talmud, the second most popular religious book in Judaism, which describes Jesus as boiling in a pot of excrement in hell and the bastard child of a whore? That's what they describe Mary as. You're not going to hear about that in your mainstream churches, just like you're not going to hear any criticism or anybody pushing back against such nonsense like you did in Tucker Carlson's interview. Here's more of Ted Cruz's idiocy.
So I've never taken money from the Israel lobby. Have you?
Taken money from the Israel...
From AIPAC.
So AIPAC raises a lot of money for me, but it's actually a misnomer, because the people who raise money are individuals. Right. So it's not the PAC itself, but they're individual members.
Wait a minute. See, actually, he messed up his talking points. What he tried to say there was he tried to pretend that it has nothing to do with Israeli Jews, that it's American Jews. They're American Jews who are donating to this. It has nothing to do with the foreign country over there halfway around the world, even though that's literally what they're lobbying for.
Believe in the American-Israeli friendship
is
and
the
relationship.
AIPAC a foreign lobby?
No, it's an American lobby. It's the AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
So, to be honest, not a whole lot effectively. Listen,
not a whole lot.
Listen, I came into Congress 13 years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate.
Great.
And I've worked every day to do that.
Every day to work on behalf of a foreign country. So his stated intention to become a member of Congress was to work every day on behalf of a foreign country. I could go on and on, but I don't want this video to be 12 hours long, but I'm sure you get the point. So be sure to subscribe to the channel here if you're new. And if you want to support my work, sponsor my channel through Locals by clicking the link in the description below. It's a private blog. It's $5 a month. It helps support my work. And you get access to the blog where I post things that are a little bit too hot to be showing or saying here on YouTube. So click the link in the description below. Head on over there and check it out.